In the autumn of 1857, an incident occurred in Little Rock, Arkansas, that local authorities buried so deep it took over a century for whispers to surface. On Thanksgiving night, at Rutled Plantation, a slave named Samson supposedly killed his master, Colonel Jeremiah Rutledge, with his bare hands, snapping his neck like a dry twig. What set this story apart were the claims that Samson's strength was inhuman strong enough to crush a man's skull and leave handprints pressed deep into oak beams that are still visible today. The records were sealed, the witnesses silenced. What really happened that night defied all natural explanation. Before we continue with the story of Samson and the secrets buried beneath Rutled Plantation, if you're fascinated by these forgotten chapters of American history, hit that subscribe button and let us know in the comments what state you're listening from, because tonight's tale might be closer to your hometown than you think. The story begins in the heart of Arkansas Territory, where Colonel Jeremiah Rutledge, a Massachusetts-born lawyer driven by a methodical cruelty, ruled his 3,000-acre cotton empire with a scientific rigor that shocked his neighbors. Rutledge kept meticulous records, not only of punishments, but also detailed breeding charts for his human property. Among the nearly 200 enslaved people, Samson stood apart, not just because of his 6 feet 4 inches height, but due to a strange history. Rutledge purchased him 3 years earlier, and the bill of sale listed unsettling details: strong constitution, unusual physical capabilities, possible medical anomaly. Buyer assumes all risks. Other slaves noticed his silent strength that cooled to work 16-hour days without fatigue. Lift cotton bales meant for 2 men, and his hands possessed calluses so thick they looked like horn. The plantation blacksmith swore Samson could bend horseshoes with his bare hands, though he was careful to conceal this ability. Colonel Rutledge, who fancied himself a man of learning and a subscriber to phrenology journals, took a keen interest in Samson. He began conducting strength assessments in the carriage house, timing Samson's work and forcing him to lift anvils and iron machinery for hours without fatigue. By autumn of 1857, these sessions had become dark demonstrations for wealthy planter guests who came to witness his remarkable specimen. As Thanksgiving approached, Samson's demeanor changed. The blacksmith noted Samson asking strange questions about the plantation layout and the colonel's habits. The house servants, meanwhile, glimpsed Rutledge's private journals, seeing entries about terminal experiments, ultimate strength limitations, and acceptable losses in the name of scientific advancement. As Thanksgiving Day 1857 dawned, both Colonel Rutledge and Samson were making their final preparations. Neither man knew that before the night was over, one of them would be dead, leaving behind a terrifying mystery that would haunt Pulaski County for generations. By dawn, the mansion's kitchen was alive with the frantic preparations for the grand Thanksgiving feast. Samson was assigned to ground duty, but those working alongside him noticed a new economy of momenta, strategic conservation of strength. Meanwhile, Colonel Rutledge sat in his study, reviewing his journals. His final entry read, "Today I shall push the specimen beyond all previous thresholds. Science demands nothing less than complete understanding." The prominent guest planters, a judge and a physician, began arriving around noon. Most notably, Professor Emanuel Voss, a German immigrant, an expert in physical anthropology, traveled from St. Louis to witness Rutledge's famous slave. As the dinner concluded, the colonel, flushed with wine and anticipation, led his guests to the old carriage house. Torches cast shadows over the cleared space, which now held an array of testing apparatus, iron bars, and sections of railroad iron. Samson was waiting, his massive frame radiating controlled energy. Dr. Piton, the Memphis physician, later wrote in his diary that looking at Samson that night was like looking at a spring wound to its breaking point. Rutledge began his usual demonstrations. Samson lifting impossible weights, bending thick iron, and splitting oak beams. But as the evening progressed, the colonel's demands grew extreme, turning the scientific inquiry into systematic torture. At 10:30 p.m., as Rutledge demanded he lift a massive iron flywheel from a cotton gin, something snapped in Samson. He looked at the machine, then at the colonel, and said, his voice quiet but absolute, No, sir. The refusal was unthinkable in the antebellum South, a violation that demanded instant violence. Rutledge's face twisted into a cold fury. You will do as I command, or face consequences that will make our previous session seem like gentle encouragement. Samson smiled, and the witnesses swore they had never seen an expression so terrifying. No, sir, he said one final time. I don't believe I will. Samson moved with an impossible speed, covering the distance in 3 fluid strides. Rutledge had time only to raise his hands defensively. The sound that followed was described by multiple witnesses as resembling a thick branch breaking in a strong wind. Colonel Jeremiah Rutledge died instantly as his neck snapped with an audible crack. The terror was not the killing, but the ease of it. Samson had killed his master with no more effort than a man breaking kindling. He stood over the body, then looked up at the horrified circle of faces. Gentlemen, he said, his voice carrying perfect diction and a slight, unidentifiable accent. I suggest you leave now. A stampede followed. Prominent citizens trampled each other in their haste to reach their carriages and flee. Within minutes, the plantation was empty except for the enslaved community, the body, and Samson. When the house slaves finally emerged at dawn, the carriage house was empty. Colonel Rutledge's body was gone. Samson had vanished, leaving behind only the terrifying deep handprints pressed into the oak beams where he had demonstrated his impossible strength. The vanishing of Samson and Colonel Rutledge's body created chaos. The prestigious witnesses, including Judge Dillingham and Dr. Pitt, were left in a state of nervous prostration and refused to speak about the events. Professor Voss simply disappeared, abandoning his notes filled with indecipherable mathematical notation. Sheriff Thomas Breedge arrived at Rutled Plantation to find not a revolt, but a plantation where life had simply stopped. The enslaved community was maddeningly consistent and unhelpful, providing only vague descriptions of Samson, suggesting deliberate concealment or genuine confusion about his true identity. The blacksmith, Jupiter, was the only one who shed light, raising more questions than answers. He swore Samson possessed strength far beyond normal. It wasn't natural tire, Jupiter testified. It was like he was powered by something different than the rest of us. He confessed seeing Samson scratching strange, unfamiliar numbers in the dirt and talking in a language that sounded like he was giving orders, not just talking. The physical evidence was baffling. The carriage house was damaged, but there was no blood, no clear footprints. Most mysteriously, no body. The massive manhunt led only to strange encounters in the Arkansas wilderness. Bounty hunters reported glimpses of an impossibly tall figure in campsites where trees had been uprooted by superhuman force. More troubling were reports filtering in from neighboring plantations of slaves, whispering about a strong man who was coming to set things right. By Christmas 1857, the investigation had become a massive embarrassment. Governor Elias Conway, fearing the case would inflame North-South tensions, quietly ordered all official records sealed. The first official cover-up had begun. But the most significant development came from Rutledge's personal papers. Hidden in a false bottom of his desk were receipts for chemical compounds ordered from northern laboratories, and a bill of lading for specialized pharmaceutical equipment. The final, most disturbing document was a contract with Meridian Research Associates based in Boston for ongoing physiological assessment and enhancement protocols. The death of Colonel Rutledge was not a random act of violence, was the explosion of a secret scientific experiment. The contract, discovered in Rutledge's desk, was signed by the colonel and someone identified only as subject, S in handwriting the house slaves immediately recognized as Samson S. These documents confirmed the truth. Rutledge had been conducting a secret medical experiment with northern interests to develop human enhancement protocols. The official response was a comprehensive cover-up. Documents sealed, executives sworn to secrecy, and the key house slaves sold off to distant states. Yet, rumors persisted through the underground networks dailies of a strong man who had broken his chains and disappeared, and whispers of other plantations where similar enhanced specimens might be waiting for their moment. As 1858 dawned, the Samson case officially vanished, but not for long. The Pinkerton Detective Agency, hired by unknown parties, arrived in Little Rock to conduct their own investigation. Unlike local authorities, the Pinkertons focused on Samson's origins. Detective James Hawthorne, posing as a potential buyer, tracked the original bill of sale to a bankrupt plantation in Louisiana, run by a Frenchman named Boudreaux confessed that his plantation was the site of the Southern Health Initiative, a program funded by Northern investors to test chemical compounds and medical procedures designed to enhance human physical capabilities. Samson had been part of this enhancement protocol for over 2 years. The side effects were alarming. Subjects became harder to control, showed immense strength up to 300% of baseline, and gained disturbing intellectual capabilities. Samson, in particular, quickly learned complex mathematics and began questioning the treatments. The Louisiana operation shut down after several enhanced subjects escaped during a revolt. This led the Pinkertons to the Northern connections, revealing a network of medical facilities funded by private investors and military interests seeking to develop enhanced soldiers. The central figure was Dr. Marcus Kleinman, a German immigrant running research facilities in Boston, Philadelphia, and Baltimore. His subjects were drawn from prisons, immigrant populations, and enslaved individuals. Detective Sarah Chun infiltrated Kleinman's Boston facility, confirming the program's scope. Her reports revealed that Colonel Rutled had been in regular communication with Kleinman. The terrifying truth: Rutledge's Thanksgiving demonstration had been planned in coordination with Kleinman as the ultimate psychological test. The demonstration you have planned will provide crucial data about the psychological breaking points of enhanced subjects. One of Kleinman's letters read, "We must understand what happens when they are pushed beyond all reasonable limits." The final piece of the puzzle came from Jupiter, the blacksmith. Meeting secretly with Pinkerton operatives, Jupiter revealed that the events of Thanksgiving night were not random. Samson had been preparing for months, making arrangements with people who had been waiting for the right time to help him get away. The revelation of Samson's planning led to a broader investigation of the Freedom Chain, an underground network of abolitionists, free blacks, and sympathetic whites. This network was dedicated to helping enhanced subjects escape to safe havens in Canada and Mexico, providing false identities and teaching them to control their terrifying abilities. But the most shocking discovery came when Pinkerton operatives found evidence that the Freedom Chain had been infiltrated by British and French intelligence. Eager to learn about America's enhancement technologies, Pinkerton warned his mysterious clients, "If subjects like Samson have been successfully extracted to foreign territory, we may be facing a situation where America's enemies possess capabilities that we do not fully understand or control." The Pinkerton investigation was terminated, but the whispers continued. Reports filtered in of an impossibly tall, strong figure moving through the wilderness, a mysterious benefactor who could outrun horses and bend iron but spoke with intelligence and kindness. Then, 1 year after Thanksgiving, the Samson mystery transitioned from a local manhunt into an organized conspiracy. The isolated reports coalesced into a terrifying pattern. The first major incident occurred in October near Camden, Arkansas. Plantation owner Marcus Henley had 3 new slaves, Goliath and Titan, who bore the same unusual physical capabilities marks as Samson. On October 15th, the 3 men didn't break the locks. They broke the shackles themselves, twisting solid iron bands apart as if they were made of clay. The overseer testified, "These men moved like they could see in the dark, coordinated like they'd been planning this for years. They systematically destroyed every piece of restraint equipment before departing with detailed maps." Within weeks, similar reports flooded in from Mississippi and Louisiana. Enhanced subjects were escaping from research facilities, leaving behind equipment twisted into abstract sculptures of bent metal and destroying all related documents. The pattern was clear. The enhanced subjects were being coordinated by a central authority that possessed inside knowledge of the enhancement program. Dr. Marcus Kleinman, the German researcher, instrumental in the enhancement protocols, arrived in Little Rock. His assessment grim: "We are dealing with subjects who have been fundamentally altered, not just physically, but intellectually, displaying strategic thinking and problem-solving skills far beyond the original parameters." Kleinman's most disturbing revelation concerned a possible form of shared consciousness that allowed the subjects to coordinate their actions across vast distances, fundamentally altering the nature of the threat. Dr. Kleinman's report was chilling. "We may have accidentally created a new form of human being, one that views ordinary humans not as equals, but as inferior." Authorities now suspected Samson was not just an escapee, but the coordinating intelligence behind the growing network of enhanced individuals. Bounty hunter Thomas Bogard, provided the most detailed account of an encounter with Samson near the Buffalo River. Samson, standing on a ledge 30 feet above, was nearly 7 feet tall and built like he could tear a tree out of the ground. It wasn't his size that scared me. It was his eyes. He looked at me like he was calculating exactly how long it would take to kill me. Samson spoke to Bogart in perfect, educated English, delivering a defiant message. He told me that I was hunting the wrong prey, that for too long people had been treated like property. He said that was going to change whether we wanted it to or not. The encounter ended non-violently, with Samson simply stepping backward off the ledge, vanishing without a trace, leaving only deep handprints pressed into the rock. By late 1858, the situation was the Samson crisis, with President Buchanan receiving regular briefings. Military officials, like General Winfield Scott, warned in classified memos, "We are fundamentally unprepared to address this threat created by their own scientific ambitions and insurgency led by individuals who are virtually superhuman." The final, decisive incident of 1858 occurred on New Year's Eve at a secret military research facility in eastern Tennessee. The facility was attacked by a coordinated force led by someone matching Samson's description. It was not a chaotic assault, but a precisely planned military operation. They disabled communications, systematically destroyed all research materials, and freed subject soul within 2 hours without killing a single person. The message left carved 2 inches deep into the laboratory wall confirmed the war footing. The chains are broken. The strong shall no longer serve the weak. A new age begins. It was signed with a symbol of broken shackles. As 1859 dawned, Samson and his growing army were preparing for their next move. The confrontation that would finally reveal the full scope of the conspiracy came in the spring, in the nation's capital itself. Congressman Joshua Giddings, of Ohio, a fierce opponent of slavery, received an anonymous package detailing the full extent of the Human Enhancement Program. Hundreds of pages of records detailing a network of experimentation funded by government and military interests. The documents contained a roster of over 300 names. At the top, marked with notations for highest enhancement level and active resistance leader, was the name Samson. Giddings immediately demanded congressional hearings into the systematic enslavement and torture of human beings, triggering fierce resistance from those determined to protect the secrets of the scientific cabal. Congressman Giddings' efforts led to the formation of a select committee. In the Capitol building, Dr. Marcus Kleinman testified, his German accent thick with emotion. He claimed the enhancement protocol was initially a humanitarian effort to reduce suffering, but it metastasized into full-scale human modification, violating every principle of medical ethics. Kleinman admitted that Samson represented their most successful and most dangerous outcome, possessing physical capabilities 400% of baseline norms and an intellectual development that exceeded projections, making him fundamentally unsuitable for continued bondage. The program had spread beyond enslaved subjects to include prisoners and soldiers, creating a broader system of exploitation. General Winfield Scott confirmed in closed session that the War Department had funded the research since 1852 to create enhanced soldiers, but the results were catastrophic. The enhanced subjects became resistant to authority and deserted at unprecedented rates, proving unsuitable for a military discipline. The crisis reached its climax on April 25th when the committee received a formal, written statement from Samson himself, signed by over 50 other enhanced subjects. The message, read into the congressional record, was a declaration of independence. I write to you not as a former slave, not as an escaped fugitive, but as a free man who has broken the chains that bound not just my body, but my mind and spirit as well. Samson stated that the enhancement process gave them clarity of vision about the true nature of this nation as institutions. He demanded the immediate termination of all enhancement programs, the freedom of all subjects, and recognition of their status as free human beings with equal rights. The message was a clear threat. If these demands are not met, we will take whatever actions are necessary to secure our freedom. The response was split, further escalating the divisions that were already pushing the nation toward civil war. President Buchanan authorized a massive manhunt, deploying military units against the enhanced insurgents. But even as the manhunt intensified, sightings were reported near major cities, suggesting organized urban reconnaissance. The final confrontation came on May 10th, 1859. When Samson himself appeared in Washington, D.C., he walked openly through the streets, his massive frame unmistakable, moving with complete confidence. His destination was the Capitol building. Though his request for a meeting was denied, his mere presence sent an undeniable message. The enhanced subjects were no longer running and hiding. They had come to the Capitol to fight. Samson's brief, open appearance in Washington ended abruptly, but not without consequence. Before vanishing, he carved a final, devastating message into the Capitol steps. The experiment is over. The specimens have become the scientists. This declaration confirmed that the enhanced subjects were no longer victims. They were now active agents capable of challenging the government that created them. The resolution of the Samson crisis came not through violence, but through a series of secret negotiations, the Washington Compact, recognizing that a military solution would result in catastrophic casualties. President Buchanan authorized communication with Samson's representatives. Samson's demands were sophisticated, focusing on justice over revenge. The core elements of the unacknowledged Washington Compact included the immediate cessation of all federal human enhancement research, the destruction of all subject records, and the provision of new identities and financial support for subjects wishing to integrate into normal society. Most importantly, the compact established a separate territory in Alaska, then Russian territory, where enhanced subjects could establish their own self-governed communities. Dr. Kleinman, in exchange for immunity, provided crucial medical information to develop treatments that could reduce the subject's enhanced capabilities, allowing those who chose integration to live relatively normal lives. Samson himself chose separation and relocation to Alaska, but only after ensuring that every other enhanced subject had been given genuine options. His final communication demonstrated his moral clarity. I have no desire to live among people who view individuals like me as either property to be owned or weapons to be controlled. He concluded that the negotiated compact provided a path forward that respects the autonomy of all parties. The public resolution was a complete cover-up. The congressional investigation was quietly concluded, acknowledging only irregularities. Key figures were transferred to remote research. The enhanced subjects who chose integration scattered across the northern states, living quiet lives under assumed identities, their enhanced capabilities providing advantages they were careful not to display too obviously. The secret compact successfully resolved the immediate crisis, and the principles established autonomy, secrecy, and the acknowledgement of superhuman capabilities would influence government research and policy for generations to come. The enhanced subjects who chose integration used their unique perspective and capabilities to become important figures in the abolitionist movement, fighting against the very system that had exploited them. Those who chose separation established communities in Alaska that became legendary among indigenous populations for their strength, wisdom, and commitment to justice. These communities became centers of technological innovation that eventually benefited the entire territory. The most lasting impact of the Samson crisis was its effect on federal policy. The Washington Compact included provisions that established the first formal ethical guidelines for government-sponsored medical research principles that would secretly evolve into the modern system of informed consent and human subjects protection. This intervention helped prevent similar crises in future decades. The Civil War, which began less than 2 years later, overshadowed the enhancement program in public memory. Official records were classified and eventually forgotten, buried in archives for over a century. But the impact of Samson's defiance was permanent. The crisis demonstrated that human dignity and individual rights could triumph over even the most sophisticated systems of oppression. As the years passed, the story of Samson became legend rather than history. Yet, in certain circles among civil rights advocates and the indigenous communities of Alaska, the memory of the enhanced subjects served as a reminder of both humanity's capacity for cruelty and its potential for redemption. The handprints Samson left pressed into the oak beams of the Rutled Plantation carriage house remained visible for decades, a physical, awe-inspiring reminder of the extraordinary strength required not just to break physical chains but to challenge an entire system of human exploitation. This mystery shows us that the greatest horrors in human history often arise not from supernatural forces but from the willingness of ordinary people to treat others as less than human when it serves their interests. But it also shows us that human dignity and the desire for freedom are forces more powerful than any enhancement, any system of oppression, or any attempt to reduce people to property. What do you think of this story? Do you believe everything was revealed? Or are there still secrets buried in the archives of our government? Leave your comment below and let us know what you think really happened to Samson and the other enhanced subjects. If you enjoyed this tale of hidden history and human resilience, subscribe to our channel, hit the notification bell, and share this story with someone who appreciates the complex and often disturbing truths of America's past. There are more forgotten chapters of our history waiting to be explored, and we'll be here to guide you through them on the Forgotten Liturgy. See you in the next video, where we'll uncover another mystery that the powerful would prefer to keep buried.